The classic number 10. Imagine a maestro on the pitch, not just playing the game, but composing it. This was the classic number 10, a footballing artisan who operated in the delicate space between midfield and attack, weaving patterns with vision and technique. Players like Juan Román Riquelme, Zinedine Zidane, and Mesut Özil in his prime were the architects of attacks, their primary directive being pure, unadulterated creation. They were the heartbeat of their teams, dictating the rhythm of play with a flick of the boot or a perfectly weighted pass that could unlock the most stubborn defenses. Defending, tracking back, or pressing were often secondary concerns, almost an afterthought to their primary mission of artistic expression. They were, in essence, a luxury, a testament to an era where a team could afford to carry a genius whose contributions were almost exclusively attacking. However, the relentless march of modern football, particularly the developing of high-pressing systems like Jurgen Klopp's gegenpressing, began to erode this romantic ideal. The game evolved into a high-intensity chess match, where every player became a pawn in the defensive structure. The classic number 10, once revered for their static brilliance, found themselves increasingly isolated. Today's number 10s, like Kevin De Bruyne or Bruno Fernandes, are not just creators, but also relentless engines, covering vast swathes of the pitch, pressing and tracking back with an intensity that would have been alien to their predecessors. The slow, defensively lazy genius, once the epitome of footballing romance, has been replaced by a more pragmatic, all-action midfielder. The tactical evolution didn't just change the game, it redefined what it meant to be a playmaker, sacrificing a certain artistry for athletic efficiency.
The target man. From the elegant orchestrator, we shift to football's battering ram, the target man. These were the titans of the penalty box, players like Luca Toni, Jan Koller, and the formidable Duncan Ferguson, whose sheer physical presence was a tactical weapon. Standing often at 6 feet 3 inches or taller, their role was unambiguous. Dominate aerial duels, hold up the ball under immense pressure, and bring teammates into play. Crosses were not just an option, they were the lifeblood of an attack built around these giants, who devoured them with a primal hunger. They were the focal point, the immovable object against which defenses would crash, creating chaos and opportunities for others. Yet even this seemingly timeless role succumbed to football's relentless evolution. Pep Guardiola's revolutionary Barcelona demonstrated that success didn't require a traditional striker, let alone a static target man. Modern football demands forwards who are multifaceted, pressing from the front, dropping deep to link play, and possessing a fluidity that traditional target men often lacked. Consider Andy Carroll, a player whose imposing physicality and aerial prowess made him a sensation at Newcastle. However, his £35 million move to Liverpool in 2011 highlighted the limitations of a purely physical approach in a top team that demanded more intricate link-up play and movement. Similarly, Marouane Fellaini, while often deployed in midfield, showcased the target man's hold-up ability effectively at Everton and sporadically at Manchester United. But even his role evolved to include more dynamic contributions.
Aleksandar Mitrovic perfectly embodied this dilemma. The Serbian striker was a classic target man, powerful in the air, aggressive in duels, deadly when supplied with crosses. At Fulham, he was devastating in the Championship, scoring 43 goals in the 2021-22 season. But in the Premier League's high-intensity environment, where defenders pressed relentlessly and space vanished in seconds, his lack of pace and mobility became glaring. His 2023 move to Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia, while lucrative, perhaps symbolized the modern game's verdict on pure target men, thriving in leagues where the tempo allows their strength to shine, but struggling where speed and constant movement is in demand. Today, a player like Erling Haaland might possess the physical attributes of a classic target man, but his lightning pace, intelligent movement, and relentless pressing transform him into a modern, complete forward. The statuesque, immobile striker, once a king of the box, is now an anachronism, deemed unemployable in a game that values constant movement and tactical versatility.
The poacher. Following the physical dominance of the target man, we encounter the ultimate specialist, the poacher. These were the silent assassins of the penalty area. Players like Filippo Inzaghi, Miroslav Klose, Ruud van Nistelrooy and Javier Hernandez, who existed for one singular purpose: to score goals. They were masters of anticipation, living on the edge of the offside trap, gambling on deflections, and materializing in the 6-yard box for the simplest of tap-ins. Their contribution to build-up play was minimal. Their dribbling skills often rudimentary, and pressing was an alien concept. Yet, their positioning was almost supernatural, a sixth sense for where the ball would fall. Marco van Basten showcased this ability better than anyone during the late 80s and early 90s. While his technical brilliance and spectacular volleys often overshadowed it, his penalty box positioning was nothing short of excellent. He possessed that rare gift of knowing exactly where the ball would land before anyone else, disappearing from sight only to materialize at the crucial moment. One chance, one goal. That was the poacher's mantra, a testament to their clinical efficiency. They could go entire games with barely a touch outside the box, only to suddenly appear and decide the match with a single, decisive strike. However, modern football, with its insatiable demand for all-round contribution, has little patience for such specialists. The fact that every player is expected to contribute defensively and in build-up play rendered the pure poacher a tactical liability. A striker who merely waited for service while his teammates did the running is no longer accepted. Even prolific poacher era of the lazy genius goal scorer, living offside and stealing a living, is now a relic of a bygone era. Their single-minded focus, once their greatest asset, became their downfall in a game that demands relentless work rate and tactical flexibility from every player. The pure poacher, a beautiful anomaly, has been swept away by the tide of total football, leaving behind only the ghost of their clinical efficiency.
The support striker. Transitioning from the solitary brilliance of the poacher, we arrive at the art of partnership, the second striker, or support striker. This role was the epitome of tactical synergy, a player who thrived in the shadow of a main striker, yet illuminated the attack with their intelligence and creativity. Think of Alessandro Del Piero gliding effortlessly behind a target man, Dennis Bergkamp's sublime touches creating space, or Francesco Totti orchestrating play from just behind the front line. These players were the vital link between midfield and attack, drifting into pockets of space, exchanging intricate passes, and creating angles that baffled defenders. They weren't quite midfielders, nor were they out-and-out strikers. They occupied a beautiful, ambiguous territory, a testament to formations like the classic 4-4-2, where their nuanced contributions flourished. However, the tactical landscape shifted dramatically, and with it, the demise of the 4-4-2. Modern systems increasingly favor single strikers, or the more fluid false nine, leaving little room for this specialized partnership role. The closest contemporary equivalents, such as Roberto Firmino at Liverpool, often operated as false nines, dropping deep to overload the midfield rather than playing off a traditional number 9. The distinction between a classic number 10 and a second striker often lay in their primary focus. While the number 10 was the team's creative hub, the second striker's genius was intrinsically linked to their partner, creating opportunities for and with another forward. They were less about dictating the entire tempo and more about exploiting the spaces created by the main striker. Today's attacking setups are dominated by lone strikers, wide forwards cutting inside, or advanced midfielders pushing high. The elegant interplay between a dedicated number 9.5 and a number 9, once a cornerstone of attacking football, no longer has a place in the game, an emotional reminder of a more romantic, less rigid tactical era. The pure shot-stopping goalkeeper. In a game obsessed with evolution and versatility, one role's demise stands out as particularly ironic: the pure shot-stopping goalkeeper. For over a century, goalkeepers had one job: keep the ball out of the net. Legends like Peter Schmeichel, Oliver Kahn, and peak Gianluigi Buffon were judged solely on their saves, reflexes, and command of their box. Passing ability? Irrelevant. Distribution? A bonus at best. These were masters of their craft, dedicated specialists who perfected the art of shot stopping. Then modern football rewrote the rules entirely. Today, a goalkeeper's ability with the ball at their feet can matter as much as, or even more than, their shot stopping. Ederson's passing range is as celebrated as his saves. Coaches now prioritize distribution, composure under pressure, and the ability to play as a sweeper keeper, acting as the team's first attacker. The most damning example? David De Gea's decline at Manchester United. Despite being one of the world's elite shot stoppers for years, his poor distribution became a fatal flaw. As the game evolved around him, his inability to adapt to the sweeper-keeper role saw him phased out, ultimately leaving the club in 2023. Fabien Barthez embodied the tension between eras. Renowned for his shot-stopping and eccentric confidence, he often ventured beyond his box with the ball at his feet, sometimes brilliantly, sometimes disastrously. His occasional errors from overplaying became infamous, costing his team in high-stakes moments. While he believed himself capable, he lacked the systematic training modern keepers receive from youth level, where footwork and distribution are drilled as rigorously as diving saves. The transformation is complete. Today's goalkeeper is a hybrid athlete, a sweeper keeper, an 11th outfield player, a deep-lying playmaker who launches attacks with pinpoint passes. The pure shot stopper, once the ultimate specialist, has been rendered obsolete. In the cruelest twist of football's evolution, mastery of one skill is no longer enough, even for the last line of defense.
The Destroyer.
These were the gladiators of the midfield, figures like Roy Keane, Thomas Gravesen, and Alan Smith in his midfield incarnation at Manchester United, whose very presence instilled fear. Their primary directive was simple yet brutal: win the ball back, break up opposition attacks, and protect the defensive line with an unyielding aggression and tactical positioning. Passing, creativity, or intricate build-up play were often secondary, if not entirely irrelevant, to their core mission. They were the human shields, the enforcers who ensured no opponent dared to venture too comfortably into their territory. Roy Keane, in particular, transcended the mere definition of a destroyer. While his ferocious tackling and relentless ball-winning were legendary, his influence extended far beyond the physical. Keane was a master of psychological warfare, a leader whose intensity could intimidate opponents and inspire teammates in equal measure. Stories abound of his mental battles, from staring down Patrick Vieira in the tunnel to his infamous confrontations with referees, often bending decisions through sheer force of will. He wasn't just breaking up play, he was breaking spirits, dictating the emotional tempo of the game. His leadership at Manchester United was pivotal, driving the team to unprecedented success through an unwavering demand for excellence and an absolute refusal to accept anything less than total commitment. He was the engine, the conscience, and often the terrifying voice of the team, ensuring standards never dropped. While known for his bite, his tactical intelligence and surprisingly adept passing range are often overlooked, overshadowed by his more confrontational reputation. However, the modern game, with its insatiable appetite for possession and intricate tactical systems, has largely civilized this snarling midfield warrior out of existence. The introduction of VAR has further sanitized the role, with every cynical tackle, verbal outburst, and aggressive confrontation now subject to forensic review. The margins for intimidation have vanished. What was once celebrated as passion is now punished as excessive force. N'Golo Kante, perhaps one of the last true destroyers, evolved his game to include greater technical proficiency and tactical awareness to remain relevant. The pure destroyer, limited in passing and focused solely on aggression, finds little sanctuary in a football landscape that demands multifaceted brilliance and a seamless integration into both offensive and defensive phases. The era of the midfield enforcer, whose primary weapon was intimidation and brute force, has given way to a more refined, cerebral athlete, policed by technology, shaped by tactical evolution, and judged not by fear instilled, but by passes completed.
The regista.
These were the maestros who orchestrated attacks from the serene depths of midfield, their movements often minimal, their impact profound. Andrea Pirlo, Xabi Alonso, and Michael Carrick embodied this role, sitting deep, almost untouched by the frantic pace around them, yet controlling the game with an almost telepathic vision and pinpoint passing. Their genius lay in their ability to receive the ball, assess the entire pitch in an instant, and then unleash a perfectly weighted long pass that could split defenses or switch the play with breathtaking accuracy. Defensive responsibilities were largely absolved. Their job was pure distribution, a luxurious freedom afforded to them in systems that prioritized possession and controlled build-up. The relentless pressing and high-intensity demands of modern football have rendered this static, artistic role increasingly vulnerable. The luxury of a player who could stand still and dictate play has been replaced by the necessity of constant motion and defensive contribution. Today's deep playmakers, while still possessing exceptional passing ability, must also be aggressive pressers, adept at winning duels, and capable of covering vast amounts of ground. The difference between a Pirlo or Carrick and a modern deep-lying midfielder like Rodri or Joshua Kimmich is subtle but crucial. Movement. While both operate from deep positions and orchestrate with their passing, Pirlo was afforded the luxury of minimal running, operating within his small midfield circle, rarely pressing, almost never breaking into a sprint. Rodri, by contrast, must combine that same elite passing and tactical awareness with relentless work rate, aggressive pressing, exceptional tackling, and the ability to carry the ball forward into attacking zones. He's expected to cover every blade of grass while maintaining the same creative output.
Even Pirlo recognized the shift. Late in his career at New York City FC, he lamented that modern football had become too much physical work and too little play. A telling admission from a player whose genius relied on having the time and space to think. The standing conductor, who once controlled games from his small circle of influence with minimal running, has been left breathless by football's relentless physical evolution. Artistry, in this instance, has been sacrificed, or rather, absorbed. The regista didn't disappear, he simply had to learn to run.
The balanced fullback. Finally, we arrive at the flanks, where the role of the fullback has undergone perhaps one of the most dramatic transformations. There was a time when the position demanded balance. Fullbacks were expected to defend competently and contribute in attack when opportunities arose. Players like Gary Neville, Ashley Cole, and Paolo Maldini epitomized this equilibrium. Solid defensively, capable going forward, and tactically intelligent enough to know when to commit and when to hold. They were complete fullbacks, athletes who understood that their primary responsibility was defensive, but who could seamlessly transition into attack without abandoning their duties. It was a role defined by discipline, timing, and awareness, the art of doing both well without sacrificing one for the other. Modern football, however, has shattered this equilibrium entirely. Today's fullbacks have become hyper-attacking specialists, often functioning more as wingers than defenders. Trent Alexander-Arnold, for example, operates almost as a deep-lying playmaker from the right-back position, his passing range and crossing ability being his primary weapons. Yet his defensive vulnerabilities have become a constant source of debate and criticism. Alphonso Davies at Bayern Munich is essentially a winger masquerading as a left-back, his blistering pace deployed primarily in offensive transitions. Pep Guardiola's tactical innovations, particularly inverting fullbacks into midfield or pushing them absurdly high, have further distorted the role, prioritizing attacking contribution over defensive security. The result? Fullbacks who can barely defend. Overlapping runs are no longer calculated risks, they are constant, relentless obligations, leaving gaping spaces in behind that opponents ruthlessly exploit. The balanced fullback, the player who could defend their flank with authority and contribute meaningfully in attack, has been replaced by tactical extremists. Modern systems demand fullbacks who are either inverted midfield playmakers or marauding wingers, with defensive competence often treated as an afterthought. A fullback who simply does both jobs well, without spectacular attacking statistics, is now considered outdated, boring, and ultimately replaceable. The position has transformed from a role of tactical intelligence and balance into one of relentless attacking output, where defensive frailties are tolerated, even expected, in pursuit of offensive dominance. The game that once celebrated artists, enforcers, and pure craftsmen now demands that every player be everything, all at once, leaving us to wonder, have we gained tactical perfection, or lost something beautiful in the process? If you enjoyed this deep dive into football's forgotten roles, subscribe for more tactical analysis on how the beautiful game continues to evolve.